Okay, let's start. So we've talked a little bit today about the stats of the company and also what the expectations are. I think this segment is about the business model. What are we building and why are we building and the theory behind it. It is something that we've been developing over the last 4 years and we're proving it out. And this is, it's not really talking about GigaOM Pro on the research side, but more specifically about GigaOM in general and how all the pieces work together. And these are just some thoughts that we have and how we look at the world. And those are our guiding principles. So I think this is more important for you guys to understand what our guiding principles are so we can actually build a very solid company and a foundation and see how it all works together. So this is really the business model of GigaOM. So first you never thought you just came out of school and I'm like giving you a slide about classic economics. And classic economics teaches you one thing. They have a thing called ceteris paribus, meaning everything held constant, which means that they've assumed a lot of issues away. And by assuming a lot of issues away, they were able to create a very elegant theory of how things work. And I think part of that theory is right, but part of the theory is wrong, because there's a thing that I'll get into later that they've missed. But classical economic means that every agent in the economy, every person in the economy making a decision just has to go to marginal revenue equals marginal cost. You basically sell your product to the point where at different prices, but you reduce your price to the point where it equals the marginal cost of production. So it assumes that goods are exchangeable, that people can swap relationships very easily. You can move from one provider to the other provider, and that people don't care about anything other than price. That's the only thing that classical economics thinks about. And we have a contention against that. We believe that people care about other things. And one specific thing that they care about is a relationship. And I put the slide is my brother-in-law. He's a dentist in Palm Beach. He does very well for himself. He's beautiful smile, handsome guy. He's a doctor, the whole thing. He's got the package. He has great bedside manner. But I bring him up for a very simple reason. When you walk into a dentist or a doctor, but let's assume just a dentist, when you first walk in there, your mind is thinking the following. Who is this guy? What school did he go to? Is the office clean? Are the chairs clean? How does he look? Are his fingernails clean? Do I trust this person? You never walk into that office thinking, how much is it going to cost me to get a root canal? You usually just first and try to build a relationship. And you say, do I trust this person? And if you get to that level of trusting that person and then going and becoming their patient, and then they could say, I just did a root canal is $7,000. You might say, well, it might be a little expensive, but you don't shop it around. You basically say, I like the guy, I trust him because he's doing something valuable for me. And as long as it's within the market, right, with a standard deviation away or less than a standard deviation away, you're going to say it's okay because I trust him. So in business, there's this relationship component that individuals and companies take into consideration. The value of a relationship. I do business with Ani, who you just met, right? And she's been running this. This is my second business that I do with her. There's probably better CEOs that she can find, and there's probably better people that I can find, right? But we know how to work together really well. So when I say A, B, she says, I get it. I know what C and D is. Don't worry about it. So our velocity of innovation and execution is much faster than if I had to create that relationship again. And I think that happens everywhere in the economy, right? So at the end of the day, we have this new theory. It's what I call relationship economics. And a friend of mine, his name is Paul Jaminet, who works in Cambridge, is writing a whole book about this. And there, the view is the following. The first thing that you want to optimize in your business or in anything you do is the relationship value, right? You first go into that dentist's office and say, do I like this person or not? Am I going to do business with this person for a long time or not? The second component is the transactional value. If you don't have a good relationship value, it doesn't matter if they give you the cheapest price, you're not going to do it because you don't trust it. But if you have a good relationship value, you're going to accept prices that might be a little bit higher than normal because you know that you're in it for a long haul. So in companies, what you try to do is optimize the lifetime value of the relationship. You know, say I'm going to make a lot of money with this company in the future, and not just the transaction of that time. So good negotiating in life, and I've done a lot of negotiating, is always focusing on the relationship value, assuming you win some, you lose some. That's part of business. And in every transaction, you're going to lose some, and some you're going to win some. But what the important thing is that you have a relationship. That is very similar to what GigaOM is all about. You will always hear me talk about relationships. And you'll hear Om speak about relationship and audience and readers. And the reason is that we're creating long-term relationships with our audience. And our audience, if you think about it, is a vertical audience, meaning our audience will never get to be 100 million unique visitors a month, because there's not 100 million people who want to be so deeply engaged in technology, who want to read about cloud computing. I mean, we are in an esoteric field. So what it means, if we have a limited number of audience out there, we need to view them as long-term relationship, and how do we create a long-term relationship that we can extract a lot of value in the future. So not only we extract value in ads, we also extract value in events, event tickets, sponsorships, and research. So at the end of the day, what we're doing with GigaOM on the blog side is discovering these relationships. So just to summarize a little bit, right now we have our site, which is our blog that you see, and that's supported by ads. We have events that's supported by ticket sales and sponsors. We have research, right, that's supported by subscriptions online and selling to the enterprise. And lastly, we're experimenting with digital publishing, ebooks and e-magazines. But at the core center of everything that we do is our editorial integrity. Because we believe that the best way to create an audience and to get people to come back over and over again is for people to say, you know what, I go to GigaOM because whenever I read something from them, it's truthful. I might not agree with them, but it's truthful, and I'm confident that they did their research. The same way that you go to the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and you read the paper, you say, I think at least I trust what they're telling me. And they're about analysis. So that's what we stand for, sort of editorial analysis. So whatever we do, we never sacrifice that editorial integrity at all, not even to please a customer. We always are unbiased, and there's a big Chinese wall, and that's at the center. And that's at the center because, like I told you in our presentation, we generate over 5.5 million uniques a month. We have a lot of content that is SEO crawled. And the reason that our content comes up in the first page of Google is because Google says a lot of people link to your content, and it's a respected content source. So we always protect that because that generates the traffic, the network traffic that comes from our sites. Then we can discover new clients, and we can sell them either ads, events, research, or digital books. So when you look at this picture, what is the first thing you just think? You know, Warren Buffett. But Warren Buffett represents credibility. When the real estate crisis happened and the banks were going under, he came in and said, I'm going to buy 10% of Goldman Sachs. As soon as he said, I'm going to buy 10% of Goldman Sachs, the world said, oh, thank God we're saved. We have the maven of Omaha deciding to save the country. And probably he didn't save it, but it's a little bit of what we've learned a little bit in economics called rational expectations. That was the expectation. So people say, okay, we're all good. If the guy who has the most money out there and who knows how to buy stocks is actually bailing out Goldman Sachs, hey, we're going to be okay. And if you actually look, psychologically, that was probably the turning point of that whole real estate crisis. I don't think he did anything for it other than a psychological feeling, okay, he's credible. And when you talk about that and you talk about business models, think about GigaOM in the same way. We always want to be that Warren Buffett of technology. When people read something, they're reading our analysis and they say, hey, I might disagree with it, but it's truthful, and they have checked their facts. So what are other companies that have built great businesses around credibility? BMW is one of them. If you think about BMW, not everybody buys BMW. It's like us. It's a vertical company, right? It's focused on a narrow market, a segment of the market. Not everybody can afford a Beamer, right? Even a Mini, at $20,000, not everybody can afford that Mini at $20,000. So what they've done is said, look, we are going to create a brand that basically represents the best driving machine ever. And anybody who wants the best driving machine, and they want to be behind the wheel of the best driving machine, is going to buy a Beamer. And what we're going to do, because we want to establish a long-term relationships with people, we're going to go to Sammy and say, Sammy, you just graduated from school. You can't afford a 7 Series, but we're going to sell you a Mini. And you're going to try the Mini at $20,000. And eventually, our bet is that you're going to like it. And then your next car might be a 3 Series as you make more money. And then when you become a big executive, you're going to buy the 5 Series. And then when you come to 65 years old, you're going to be driving the 750i because you're going to be feeling great and rich. But the idea is that we're going to get you early on. You're going to be you're going to love the brand because it's credible for you, and you're going to be a customer forever. So they are building a relationship value. And you, as Sammy, if they sell you the Mini, or let's forget it, the Mini, they sell you the 5 Series for $3,000 more, I don't think you'll move to Mercedes because you already had that great experience where they say, look, you're not that price sensitive because you value the machine that we're selling you. And that's the idea of building brands and building long-term relationships. And everything you do in business is about that. So always think about your consumer. Never think of how much you're going to make, try to fleece him for the first dollar. What you're trying to do is say, have a recurring relationship for the lifetime of this business. Another company that's a great example of a company in publishing that makes a ton of money and builds great relationships. The Economist. The Economist has a magazine that not everybody likes to read. We all get to the airport, we're confronted with a newsstand, and we see 2 types of magazine. People magazine or The Economist. And we think, what do I want to read right now? And only 10% of the people say The Economist, and 90% of the people say People. But the people who say, I want to read The Economist, they're saying, I want to feed my brain. And this is going to be an important relationship that I want to have with The Economist. So The Economist understood that. And they said, I'm going to sell as many magazines as I can to people in my vertical market that care deeply about the world and politics around the world and economics about the world. And then they did that. And it was a great branding exercise. They made a lot of money selling in the newsstands for the magazine and advertising. And then they said, now that we are synonymous with credibility in country risk, they said, why don't we create a research platform that we can create research reports about country risk? You're going to Zimbabwe. How's the country risk doing? You're starting a business in Sri Lanka. What is the risk of starting a business in Sri Lanka? So they have a whole segment called the Economist Intelligence Unit that only sells research for these high-end consumers. Think about GigaOM, right? The parallel to that is that we have our site, which is our magazine. It's just a new evolution of an online magazine where we write content for free. And we actually make money by selling ads, right? Same thing as The Economist. But that's where we discover new customers and are engaged in a daily conversation. And that's where our readerships are part, and we are engaged in a fast conversation. And then on the other extreme, we have GigaOM Pro, which is a research. Hey, it's the Economist Intelligence Unit for you guys who care deeply about this market. So I'm trying to show you parallels about how our business model is to other business models that exist. So we're doing new things in the world of journalism, but at the same time, we're only extending business models. So when you're a disruptor in any space, you don't want the model to be completely different. You just want to extend it. Where some of those incumbents, the people who exist right now, are not getting into or not changing, and you're changing faster than they can change. And that's the trick that we do. And lastly, you guys have probably had Starbucks coffee. Maybe some people like Pete's. But the interesting thing about Starbucks is they believe in relationships. So imagine, they went to the world and the investors and say, hey, we're going to build a company. And let me tell you the premise of this idea. We're going to sell a cup of coffee for 5 times what it usually costs. Imagine that premise. What? $2.50 for something for 50 cents? How does that work? Yeah, we're going to give them a great experience. We're going to tell the consumers that we're going to source the best beans around the world. And we're going to roast them, and there's going to be a quality of a cup of coffee. And we're going to give them an experience when they walk into our store that is nice. It's going to be like a coffee shop from Italy or France. They're going to be able to sit down. There's going to be music. There's going to be free Wi-Fi. We're going to give them an experience. And that's going to create a relationship. So when I try to sell them the $2.50 coffee, people say, yeah, that's a great relation. I am willing to pay more for the same product, which is a commodity. Remember, coffee is a commodity. It trades in the bourse as a commodity for more than what that commodity is worth. And when they created that relationship through coffee, then they say, well, what else can I sell them? Oh, let's sell them the pastry. Let's sell them the mug. Let's sell them the music. They even sell you music, okay? Not a lot, but they sell you the music, right? So if you think about it, that's someone saying, I create a relationship in the most commoditized product ever, coffee, roasting coffee. It cannot be cheap, simpler than anything. Just, if you've seen the roasters, you put it in, it roasts. You don't even have to do anything. It just keeps going, it roasts, right? They packaged that and they made it global. So that means that consumers care about relationships. And they're sensitive to price as long, they're not sensitive to price as long as that relationship value is there and that they trust it. You walk into Starbucks and you know you're going to get a good cup of coffee. Bottom. You know it's a good product. And when you go global, you know the coffee is going to taste the same here or in Spain or in Sri Lanka. And that is a value that consumers care about. So, what's our model as GigaOM? Now that you understand a little bit that we're thinking about building long-term relationships, building credibility, thinking about our customers in the long term. So what's our model? Our media model is very simple. We create persistent relationships, long-term relationships. We go and try to create lots of ways that we can make money from those relationships. And lastly, we try to disrupt incumbent markets, incumbent players in markets. Gartner, New York Times, Forrester, IDG, anybody who's been doing or following technology in the old way, we're trying to bring something new and exciting to that. So how does this all work, okay? And this is where I think people know my curves a lot in this company. I've been talking, you'll see these slides for the next 20 years. Maybe they'll change colors a little bit. But my goal is that these things will last until even when I'm gone out of here. So that green curve is what I call the marginal utility curve of all of our readers. And if you think about it, every reader is unique. Every person is unique. So that means that I have not a homogeneous client base or readership. We have a heterogeneous client base. So everybody around that curve has a different value relationships vis-a-vis GigaOM, right? Some people value us very much, and some people don't value us that much. So for example, the 5 millionth visitor that comes to our site on a monthly basis might be my wife, who doesn't care at all about technology, but has just found out that she wanted to get some information about Apple. So she goes to Google and says, find me information about Apple, words with friends, and blah, blah, blah. She puts it in. She comes to her list. She sees, oh, GigaOM wrote something about that topic, clicks on it, reads it. She says, this was a good article. It was useful or not. She makes a choice. Do I bookmark it so I go back to that website again? Or I don't bookmark it? No matter what she did at that point in time, her value relationship is the ads that I sold her, right? I served X amount of ads, and I was able to monetize our relationship because there was an ad impression. Hopefully, she's my discovery, right? That's a discovery network that I have through Google. I discover new clients, and hopefully when they start reading my stuff, they say, interesting, I might come back tomorrow again and read something about them. Or if they Google enough throughout time, then they say, what's this GigaOM always coming up in my feed or in my pages? So that's my wife on one side. Then there's other people on the other side who say, I'm very happy to pay Malik $100,000 for 1 day of consulting, right? Now, there might be only like 3 people in the world who are willing to do that, but there's people like that who say, hey, I'm doing something really innovative. I'm a very rich guy. I need you to give me some advice, right? Because they might be investing in a huge technology company that's going to make them, they're going to put $100 million, so $100,000 is not that much for them to spend on 1 day of someone who knows technology really, really well, right? But we know that there's only probably 3 or 5 or 10 people who are willing to pay that much. But the game that we are trying to do is how do we fill, if you think about this, this is all the monies that we can generate from all of our audience, right? Some people we sell, $100,000. Some people will just sell them an ad. And there's going to be a lot of different things here that I can sell these people, right? And the Starbucks people, right? Starbucks, I sell them a coffee. I might sell them, some people buy the mug, which might be a little more expensive. Some people buy the music, which is a little bit more expensive. Some people buy the pastry that's less expensive. And the idea is to create products and services to satisfy all those points in the equation. And you need to cluster them, right? So you can't create one product for every inch of this thing, but you have to cluster utilities. That's, if you've taken economics, that's sort of like how the game of what you try to do. So this is our ad business. So if you come to our site only once, I'm going to make probably 3 to 4 cents from you. If you come 1,000 times, I'll make $30, right? Now, the more you come and the more engaged, you'll make more money. If you come 10,000 times, I'll multiply that. I'll make more money from you. But this game is an interesting game. This game is driven by CPM rates. And I don't know if you guys know what CPM rates are, but CPM is how you price an ad on a page. And CPM rates, if you track them from 1996 to today, the same ad unit in the same website has gone from $60 to $2. So we call that an asymptote, right? And if you think about it, when we started GigaOM, we were one of the first ones to believe that in vertical markets like ours, like like GigaOM, which is there's only maybe 15 million uniques out there, you could not make money or make a big business by being supported by advertising. Because if Matt Mullenweg, who's the founder of WordPress, and I don't know if you've heard of him, he has WordPress is huge. And basically what WordPress is doing is giving everybody, even my daughter, a blog. And they basically tell everybody, now you can print page views. And if you think page views, if everybody gets a blog in the world, page views are going to grow exponentially in the future. But advertising expenditures globally only grow by GDP growth. That's the fact, because it can only be X% of the budget of any product, of any product that you sell. So if that only grows by GDP growth, but you have page views growing exponentially, what's the future of CPM rates? Are like an asymptote. They'll never touch zero, but they'll be close to zero. So if you want to play in the advertising game, you need to be as big as Facebook, that has billions of page views, so you can make money. But if you're in the business of a vertical publisher like we are, in which we'll generate 10, 15, 20 million page views, right? And you want to provide your users a good experience, you don't want to bombard them with ads and so on, that's only going to be a very small portion of your total revenue. So we were confronted early on in our history in GigaOM with this reality. I said, so we need to do something different. So they said, why don't we think that our sites are a funnel, basically a customer acquisition funnel for new people that we can sell them something. So we generate all this editorial product. We spend X amount of money, generate great editorial. People arrive, they read, and hopefully some people arrive here and they stay. Some people will go away, but the people that they stay, we can sell them more and more products. So then we came up with this other product. We said, okay, what else can we sell these people, right? And they said, well, how about events? We knew that events it was something that people wanted to attend. And I make a really interesting analogy. It's a little bit out there, but who watches football here? Well, okay, not a lot of people watch football, but let's assume you know what football is, right? Mm-hmm. And in football, I don't know if you've gone to a football game. Who's gone to a football game? Okay. Who's gone to a professional football game? How boring are the professional football games? Why? Because you have these like, when they go on commercial break on TV, you sit there for like 20 minutes doing nothing. I mean, they're pretty damn boring, right? And I was thinking, why do people want to come to these football games? I can be in my home with a big screen and go get a beer or hang out or go talk to someone and then come back to the game. But it turns out that there's X amount of the people who are fanatics about football. And those fanatic people about football don't care about those commercial breaks because they love being there. Same thing with the world of events. We're no different. There are people who come and read us every single day from the comfort of their home or their little iPhone. But there's some people who say, I want to be at the event so I can listen to the speaker speak, and I want to be able to talk to them and shake their hand and meet prospective customers, and I want to interact in a human way, right? Great. There's always a market for that. We know it's not huge, right? We know it's only going to be maybe 25,000 people, 30,000 people of our current audience, but we know that they're willing to pay real money for that experience. So we created a portfolio of events that provided that. From a ticket sale we started at $300, now it's like an average of $1,300, to sponsorship opportunities because Microsoft wants to be in front of our audience, because a lot of the people who come to our events are conferences, high-end, very editorially, very feed your brain type of event. They want to be part of that, right? They want to be represented there. So they're willing to pay $75,000 or $50,000 or $30,000 to be represented there. So we know that we can make a ton of money from them, but we can only grow it so much, right? Because if you can only grow, let's say, to 10 events a year, and each event represents $1.5 million, you'll only get to $15 million in revenue. That sounds great for small companies, but now if you want to build a $1 billion company, because $15 million doesn't get you to $1 billion. So we said to ourselves, okay, that is great. We have a high-touch product for the people who really care about the high-touch product. And we have a low-end product, low-touch product, which is our website. What else can we do? So then we said, okay, why don't we come up with a new product, right? I wanted a product that had these characteristics, that I can get more people to buy it at a lower price, right? That was not very difficult to produce. I was not constrained by the physical world, right? I was not constrained by going to a conference or having a conference, so that constrains my growth, right? And had the attributes of a digital economy, and had the attributes of something that I can produce at a very low cost. So that's when we came up with the GigaOM Pro. And GigaOM Pro was the following concept, how it started. We have 5.5 million potential customers. X% of those customers, say 20%, would want to read research. Great. How do we create a research product that I can sell to them at no more than $300 a year? Interesting equation, right? Because if you start looking at Gartner model and Forrester, they cannot do that because they have such high payroll from all their analysts. They have 400 analysts. They have to pay each one of them $150,000 a year plus benefits and so on. You just multiply it out. It's a very, expensive proposition. So we said, well, how about if we turn it around and we say, given that we have such a big audience, and there's this tendency for the best analyst of Gartner and Forrester and the big guys to break away. Because remember, if you're an analyst at these firms, you probably make $150,000, $200,000, but you're capped. And these guys say, look, if I can sell my research to 2 of my customers, I'll make the same amount of money by working by myself, and I can work from home, right? So these guys are saying, I'll break away from Gartner, I'll become independent, and I'll sell my own research. But what they didn't realize is when they also need a platform, because they say, how do I find new customers, right? How do I sit? Gartner allowed them to sit on panels and conferences, which gave them a lot of marketing. Who does my back-end bookkeeping? How do I tell people I'm available for a quick call, right? There's a lot of marketing services that go behind that. So that's where we came around and said, well, why don't we create a platform that these analysts, who we don't have to pay their salaries, contribute research to our platform. And we'll go into that model later and more in detail. But they contribute, research to our platform. We just pay on a, on a piece basis. They buy one research report. We pay them X amount of dollars, and then we aggregate all that research, and then we sell it to our customers who come into our site. And we saw that took off very well. We started selling thousands of subscriptions to this. And suddenly we got a call, I think it was from Adobe, and say, hey, we have around 10 of our executives bought GigaOM Pro research. we would love to see if you guys have an enterprise edition. We want to give this to everybody within our firm. I said, wow, that's interesting. So I said, well, yeah, sure, we can do that. If your whole firm buys it, I'll sell it for $20,000, a site license to everybody. And you might say, well, that's a lot of people, but who cares? My marginal cost of producing one new username is zero. So my sure, give it to like 20,000 to all your employees, and now you have everybody now reading the research. So we started going out to the enterprise customer. And then we said, well, why don't we do exactly the same that Gartner's doing? Why don't we tell these guys that we also have analysts who can write customized research for them? And we have the best of breed because we go through a vetting process of all these analysts. We say, are you good? Are you not good? What have you written? Who follows you? Who quotes you? And so on and so forth. So we tried that, and we say, hey, would you like to buy an underwritten research report from GigaOM, from our analysts? And they say, yes, I would. Does it have the GigaOM name attached to it? Yes, it does. Okay, great. Yes, I will do it. And that's how we got into the enterprise business. And we realized, wow, there's a big market here because our prices can be lower and the quality can be the same or better. And given that we have this flexible network of analysts, we can pull from the best analysts everywhere. So if we don't have someone today in this sector and our clients say, hey, I need an analyst in the sector, we can find the best person in that sector, say, would you like to be an analyst for our platform? What the analysts gain, right, on the other side, is in the marketing services. Now they can sometimes write for our blog. They put their byline. I wrote this little blog post. They write research for us with their names. They come to our events and they speak at our panels. We bring them new clients and they actually can write research for the new clients so they don't have to find the clients. And they're like saying, hey, great, I get all the benefits from working for a larger organization, but I'm completely independent. So it's an interesting model. So we can actually reduce by using technology, we can actually reduce the value chain and give the savings back to the consumer at lower prices. So that's what we did first, and this is what we did for GigaOM Pro. We first came out with the online version, and then we got into the enterprise. So right now we can sell, we're selling for clients, we're selling $100,000, but let's assume on average we're at $18,000, right? And we think that market is very large. There's lots of consumers who are willing to pay that, both on the individual side and on the enterprise side. And as you see, I'm filling out, right, what we can sell our audience at every price point. So one thing that we just launched last week was ebooks. We said, well, now we know you can buy, the transactional systems exist now with Amazon and with iTunes, right? You have the store, the bookstore. So now we can actually sell books fairly easily. We know that we have a bunch of people who want to write books. Why don't we just create some economics that we share revenue with the authors? Our journalists write a book. Maybe it's a shorter book, a 200-page book, a 100-page book. We share in the economics with them. We pay Apple a little bit for it, and we sell the product at a low price. And we're experimenting with that, right? And that's what we call digital publishing. It can be digital ebooks, it can be e-magazines, or we don't know. We don't know exactly how the world is going. But we know that we can actually either create original content and sell it as an ebook, or we can repackage existing content, like 30 blog posts on cloud computing that were generated by Stacy Higginbotham, package them as a little book and sell it to people, right? So this is something that we're just experimenting with, and everybody's just starting to experiment with that. But the idea is, at the end of the day, when you have a very engaged audience online that has different utility relationship with you, the game is to create products and services, clustered products and services that you can sell to most of them, that they will find value. So the perfect customer would be someone who comes to our site, reads our site almost every day, so we make money in advertising. They buy 1 or 2 tickets a year to come to our events, and they also buy GigaOM Pro. And they find a book that they care to read because they like the brand, and they say, hey, GigaOM is actually writing a book. We would love to download this book because I want to read about the topic. So it's that engaged audience. That's the perfect customer. And in the future, we might have other products that we come up with, right? And we'll just fill those products out. That's the business model that we have. So it is not only about building the research, but it's about building relationships. So the statistic that you will see around is average revenue, ARPU, which is average revenue per monthly unique visitor. So what is this? What I'm trying to do is say, I take all of my, like the last 12 months of revenue that I've generated, and I divide it by the average unique visitors that came on the month. So basically, I'm trying to say, how well am I penetrating our accounts, our readers, right? So the idea is that you want to show a graph like this. And we've validated this business model, right? This is how much online ads I sell. And then I started selling events, right? And my audience was growing, you know, and it grows, but then I'm layering and layering revenue on each one of my readers. And remember, not all my readers buy everything, but on average, I have an average revenue per unique visitor. My wife only will do ads. Some people will do everything, but at the end of the day, if you divide it, I'm doing a little bit of everything. And then I have research on this side, right? And eventually I'll have digital publishing on top of that. So the game here is to say, I have a limited audience, which is a vertical audience, but I'm very important to that vertical audience. I sell them everything that is to do with technology. And that's the concept that I was telling you about insights. And remember, like Rolls-Royce? What we're trying to say to our audience is we are going to provide to you insight for the next 10 years when it comes down to emerging technology. And we're going to provide you that insight in many different forms. One will be the form of our blogs. 2 will be the form of our events. 3 will be the form of our research. 4 might be the form of our books. 5 might be an e-magazine. 6 might be something else. Who knows, right? But that's the insight. So it doesn't matter what form I'm providing, I'm still providing you insight on emerging technologies. So that is the game that we're playing. That's the business model. That's our little secret sauce. And that's why people in the market sometimes get confused with us. They say, are you a media company or a research company? Well, I'm thinking, you're trying to fit me into some old school way of thinking. I either have to be this or this. Why can't I be both? What is The Economist? Is The Economist a magazine or a research company? Well, the magazine gave him the ability to have a research company, but the research is very valuable because it also fuels a magazine because they find new things. What comes first? Well, we do know that our blog generates our credibility. So at the center of our blog is what our people write on a day-to-day basis. And that fuels everything else. But what are we? A media company or research company? Are you defined? Well, what's the most valuable piece? Well, maybe the editorial piece is the most valuable piece because that's where we have 25 people writing every day. But the thing that makes the most money is our research. So what's more valuable? The thing that makes the most money or the thing that has the most value in the content? I don't know. But I do know that if I look at it as a whole, as a company that has an a daily relationship with an audience and is able to monetize that relationship with different products and services, it doesn't matter what I'm called. I'm just a company that is the leader in their space in selling insight of emerging technology. And that's what GigaOM is about. So it's the same thing as a dentist. You go to the dentist, but you don't know if you're going to get a root canal, a cleaning, you know, they're going to extract their molar or they're going to get veneers. At each stage of your life is going to be different. Maybe at 65 you get the veneers. But that's how it works. I mean, and at the end of the day, what are you? I mean, is it a cosmetic surgeon, is it cosmetic dentistry, or is he, you know, someone who's just doing a cleaning for you? I don't know. But what's important to us is that we're selling insight into our market, to our relationship. That's the business model. There's no more than that business model. So, lastly, what's the opportunity here? This year, we're going to hit $12 million in revenue. Next year, I expect to hit $20 million in revenue. How am I going to do that? Well, digital publishing, I don't know. Maybe we'll make $1 million off of that. Who knows? I don't know. We just launched it. Who knows? I know that this year I'll do $2.8 million in advertising sales, but you know, I'm dealing with this asymptote, so it doesn't grow that much. Even if my pages grow, CPM rates go down, right? So I'm sort of chasing my tail around on that one. So I'll probably generate $3 million or $3.5 million. Events, this year we'll generate $5.5 million. Next year we'll do 8 to 10. Let's do 8. But research, that puppy's growing fast. Last year we generated like $2 million. This year we're going to generate $4.5 million. The following we should be at $9 million. And that's the reason I'm bringing you in, to fuel that growth. And if you think about that, this revenue stream, the beauty of this is it's super diversified. When I talked to you about why did I show you 560 customers? Because 560 customers, I can sell ads here. I can sell sponsorships to events here. I can sell tickets to events to the people who work at those companies, and I can sell them the research. If I lose one of those customers, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hit my bottom line that much. There's another customer to get. So as a company, I'm so diversified that I can withstand hits. What we've seen also, I have products that I can sell during a recession too. I might not be able to sell a lot of sponsorships, but I'll probably be able to sell ads. And I'll still probably have to sell some research. So these revenue streams, although they're fairly correlated, there is some protection for us. I mean, it's not a perfect hedge, right? But that's, I think, the game that we're doing. And if I forecast this out, I expect that 2014 can be in the $35–40 million range. So in order to do that, we need to bring in the right people to grow globally, right? So the big number is going to be here. So if this is $9 million next year, then in 2014, this should be like a $20 million. Because remember, the $9 million here is recurring clients. Then you have to get new clients, right? So, but the beauty is you start building a recurring client base. And that's the beauty of this model. That's how you can build a billion-dollar company. You look at companies like Gartner and Forrester. Between Gartner, Forrester, IDG, Corporate Executive Board, there's at least $8 billion of revenue there that they generate. We only need to get to, let's say, 5% of that. You know, Gartner has 12,000 clients. We can probably get to 1,000 clients fairly soon. Maybe a lower price point, but that means that's a very interesting model and it can be a big company. And this is why we believe that you can take a little company that's a blog and make it a very big company. That's why people sometimes don't understand us that well. People only think, oh, you're that blog. We're the blog, but now that you know these economics, are we a blog or what are we? I mean, it's a whole different game. So what I'm trying to say, when people say, if you have to compare yourself to someone, who are you? I'm like The Economist. Super brand, very credible, simple to understand. It's not for everybody to read, but the people who read it care deeply about it and they're willing to buy other types of product. They're all related to that. That's who we are. But we're doing it in tech, the same way they did it in the world of country risk and politics and economics. We're going to do it in tech. If I had to do it with a new veneer, what's the new veneer? It's digital. It's not a paper magazine. It's not paper-based. And so we use social, the new technology in social. That's why having so many Twitter followers is important, right? Because that's how you disseminate your information. That's the power of GigaOM. I mean, this is just the beginning. We have a lot to go through. I mean, there's a lot of details around this, but this is the cornerstone of what GigaOM is all about. Questions on this? Did I lose you guys? Doesn't seem that way.
Do you expect that at some point, you talk about this vertical of who the GigaOM reader is, but do you think that in the future that's going to expand to a much more general portion of the population? It just seems like technology is becoming so much more a part of every business that it would, if I'm the leader of like a big retail business or something.
Yeah, so we are. So we are thinking of new verticals, right? First, in any small company, first, be the leader. Do things in which you can be the number one or number two, right? So when you try to do too much, you become number 3 and number 4, and those number 3 and number 4s becomes the people who they get, when budgets get cut, they get rid of those people. So our strategy right now is to be the leaders in cloud computing, big data, mobile, green IT, connected consumer. That's our goal, right? That's going to be where we have to do. Now, there are very interesting verticals. You're talking about the future of retailing. Well, there's a future of retailing that's not very different when you look at companies that exist now, right? It started with Zappos, right? It's Shoe Dazzle. I just, was had lunch with the CEO there, right? So Shoe Dazzle is changing the whole retail experience. So there's a lot of interesting things, verticals that we can go into and expand. So yes, in the future, today we have 5 verticals. In 3 to 5 years from now, we might have 15 verticals. Bioinformatics. At lunch, we were talking about, I like it because I'm a runner, right? So imagine putting things in your body and running, and every time you put your ring, it takes a fingerprint of how your blood pressure is doing, all that kind of stuff. Yes, that's a great market. So there's a lot of different verticals. But what we do well at GigaOM is focus, right? Let's not fight every battle. Let's fight some battles that we can win and be number 1 or number 2 at worst. And then we move into the next one. And then we'll battle people. So when people say, oh my God, GigaOM is coming into the future of retailing, they know we better be careful. These guys are coming strong. So right now we're trying to be the best at that. Because you can't fight every front. You'll lose the battle there. No more questions?
This might be too soon to know, but how much from an administrative sales side do you have to do customer service with reoccurring customers the enterprise space? Or is that once you get it, they're in, or is it?
No, so once we get them, then we have to fulfill their products, right? And we have a whole group with Naveen doing that. As we grow the business, you might have these businesses grow as salespeople, and then you have an account management team, and they deal with the recurring customers and fulfilling the customers. We need to see how that goes. But right now, you land the customer, we give them to Naveen. Naveen actually fulfills them to make sure that the webinars, the customer research gets put into the pipeline, the people produce it, and so on.
So right now it's just one person doing that.
1 or 2 people, right, on doing it, but that's going to grow. So the economics there, I think, are for every 75 customers, we'll have 1 customer service representative, right? Because not all the customers need something at that moment. So that's going to grow that way. It might be 50 customers for everyone. I don't know, but it's going to be there's going to be some numbers around that. But that's a super good problem to have. It's a super good problem to have.
Sorry, in terms of the analyst side of things, do you find, is it at the point where analysts are coming to you saying, I'd love to write for GigaOM, let me know if anything comes up, or is it still in the phase where you...
Both. So we have some people who come in and say, hey, I'd love to participate with you guys. Some others that we're calling say, hey, would you like to be part of the network? The trick that we have is that we don't want to grow the analyst community that big, right? We have 150. Because we need to be important to them too, right? So we need to bring them enough business. So think about supply and demand. We have enough supply of analysts. What I need to create is more demand from clients, so I have more products to sell, give it to them. So the analysts say, hey, when GigaOM calls me because they need me to write something, I'm there for them because they're bringing me a lot of business. The more business I can bring this 150 analysts, the more they're going to do with us, right? So we don't have a supply problem, and we don't have a problem, but we need to sort of increase the demand. How many more customers can we get in? So you have to manage it. So people will ask you things like, well, you're like an expert network, right? And expert networks is they just get anybody, it's who's anybody, and they have, say, we have 10,000 experts. And that expert maybe gets 1 call every 3 years, right? So and they're not vetted. Our game is completely different. Our game is look, for every vertical that we cover, we have 25 to 30 analysts. And these analysts are vetted by us. So meaning that we double check their quality and there's quality control as well because they carry the GigaOM Pro brand on them. And if we have 5 verticals, we only have maybe 150 analysts at most. So our game is that we bring you what we think are the best analysts for you because they carry our name. Yeah.
The one that you were saying that an expansive network of people who join, this expert network, is that kind of like corporate executive boards model? Yeah,
a little bit, but more like Gerson Lehman, GLG. But corporate service does a little bit of that, but it's more GLG that does it. And those are, they're good models out there, but just not what we care. Because, what we care is about the brand and the brand recognition and people being able to say, hey, GigaOM believes this, right? So in our research department, so David Card, who is our VP of research, runs two groups. One is he runs all the research directors, and the research directors they manage a vertical, right? Joe manages cloud computing. Right, Joe Maitland manages cloud computing. And what they do is that they say, for GigaOM Pro, the online product, which is basically to use an old-fashioned term, the portal of research, the library of research that we have, they want to create research that basically makes, it's their point of view. It's proprietary research. So they don't care to get someone to underwrite it or not. They just say, I'm going to get an analyst, and we want to write this research piece because I think it's a very important research to sort of write about. So those are what we call the seminal pieces of research that we do. Then on the other side, he also manages the custom publishing business, right? A client comes and say, I'd love for you guys to write, I want to underwrite a research about e-commerce platforms. So I say, great. It's going to have your brand. We're going to go do the analysis. Whatever comes out, comes out. If we basically say that your product is terrible, we're going to say it, even if you underwrite it. But that is custom publishing. He also runs that. So we separated those two functions because one is proprietary research. We want to make sure that we're making our point. And the other one is more like what clients, the products that clients want to underwrite, like a specific topic or something to that extent. But remember, even in custom research, the client never has any editorial control on our research. So we say we are going to analyze. We were not thinking about that topic, but it's a topic that you care about. Great, we're going to go analyze it, but the findings are the findings, and you're going to have to live with it if you like it or not.
You say you bring the analyst business, with the clients, does GigaOM a chunk of
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah. So we take a piece of that.
Is it just depend on each channels that you make that decision?
No, we have a pretty standard rates that we pay our analysts for the types of research that they do. We have long reports, short reports. We have 1 hour analyst time. We have a full day of analyst time. So we have different types of products that we'll go over with you. That there's different rates applied.
So you're getting the revenue from the yearly subscriptions plus the...
Yeah. So a typical sale for an enterprise customer is the following. Maybe I have it here. So these are the current research packages, right? So we have three types of packages. We have the corporate subscription. Let's assume any enterprise client, if you want to buy think about we have a sushi menu of products. In order for you to buy anything, you have to buy a corporate subscription, right? You have to, for $10,000, you're going to get enterprise-wide access to all your, for all your firm, to the GigaOM Pro, what you see online right now. You're going to get 2 hours of analyst time, and you're going to get access to our analyst platform, which is how do you interact with analysts to ask them a question. Okay? That's for $10,000. Okay? That's the entry fee. Then we say, let's assume you're a marketing company. Remember we talked about how I segment our business from transactional, corporate, and so on? So we can have what we call content marketing packaging, thought leadership market leadership package. These are just ways of packaging stuff up. And in each one of them, we basically say, well, in this one, you get a webinar. For $25,000, you get us to produce a webinar around a certain topic, right? And so on and so forth. So basically, $10,000 plus $25,000, you pay a total of $35,000 for this package and this package. We'll go into this in more detail later. I don't think this is the time to do it. We go into detail. And that's when I called you. Remember I told you about my principle, my PTP principle, package, test, package. That's what we do. This is what we're testing right now. And this is what you guys will come back and give the feedback. hey, Paul, how we're selling it right now doesn't work. Nobody buys it, you know? And that's a feedback loop that we're all going to be part of. I don't know if that helps you. That doesn't, but it's a little bit of that. I don't want to get too much into this because that's like an hour discussion.
No, I was just.
I mean, that's like a super hour discussion.
Curious.
I figure too, we'll probably also learn a lot about this as we like actually start getting some of those cycle stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so what are the products that enterprise customers buy, right? So they buy access to a library of research that we have. Think about GigaOM Pro. 2, they buy the ability to get an underwritten research report. Basically say, hey, this is a really interesting topic and you guys write something about it and can we put our name on it? They buy a webinar, right? In which we basically say, hey, we want to have a webinar in which we have a panel of analysts that you guys talk about and it's underwritten by our company. So basically people say, oh, this is great, you know, it was underwritten by a company and we all learn something. We invite people and like 300 people attend the webinar. We have analyst time, right? People want to have a 2-hour conversation with an analyst. Or they need a quick brief in which they say, I need a 5-page report on this technology that I'm looking at. And all of those things have different prices and different costs associated, right? And our world way is when you first call the customers, how do you package that, right? So nobody really always buys, oh, I bought the content marketing package. That's just a way for them to understand what they're buying and the pricing. But usually it comes out to like, okay, this client wants a webinar, he wants 15 tickets to an event, they want, you know, X amount of hours of analyst time, and they want, you know, access to, you know, 3,000 people for GigaOM Pro. And then we price that up and we say, okay, that's the price for you. And that's how it works a little bit. The packaging is more like you go and say, okay, I'm around this area. I'm a marketing company. I want sort of that. See more questions? Shoot, guys, shoot. It's all yours.
Just out of curiosity, in general with the sales, can you give us a sense of what the average conversation is like? Like, for example, would it be, hey, this is Nina from GigaOM, and the person would say, oh, GigaOM, cool, I read that, like, and then you introduce them to what GigaOM Pro is. Like, I guess my question is, are most of the people that we'll be doing business with, they're already GigaOM readers? And
so now you call it, it says, you say, what's up, man?
yeah.
And say, yo, what's up? No. Giga what? And it says, Giga? No, Giga. The more that we grow, the more people know who we are, right? So think about it in this way. We have thousands of people who come to our events. We have hundreds of people companies that sponsor our events. Our research is now read by more and more people. Mm-hmm. So it's the people are getting to know us. So it's not as a cold call as you think. It is a lot of the people who are buying have heard of us. The game is that whoever we called, 90% of them eventually say, yeah, I've heard of you, right? But we're not there yet, but I think a lot of people have heard of us. Mm-hmm. It's not such a cold call. You're not calling like, say, hey, you know, I'm a wealth manager, I'd like to manage your money. Mm-hmm. No, you're like, hey, I'm one of the, you can say things like, we're the leading independent blog in emerging technology, you know, so, and they can Google you very quickly, you know. Mm-hmm. You Google GigaOM, you guys did it, our name comes out. When we first talked to you guys, you didn't know too much about us, probably. But as soon as you Googled it around, you were able to say, oh, gee, these guys are in there. So it's that kind of a process. So it's not that tough. That part is not that tough. I think the biggest trick that we haven't done yet is when we're trying to create the sales process in which we have people like you getting leads, qualified and calling and setting appointments, is what is the right 3 sentences to use for someone not to say, okay, yeah, I'd like to meet you guys. Yeah, I'd like to have a follow-on conversation. Yeah, let's schedule a meeting. Mm-hmm. That's what we need to learn, how to be able to like quickly say, these are like the 3-liners that we have to say. You know, the elevator pitch. And the beauty of our company, and hopefully you all enjoy this beauty because I do. It's clay, you know. We're changing, we're evolving, we're honing in. But we're not there yet. We're like in this process of like clay being built. And you know how you actually build pots of clay and you like in with a thing in Mexico you move your feet and it a clay pot and it goes up. We're just in the process of making it and making it a shape. You know, we're gonna make a beautiful piece of pottery soon, but we're just in that clay phase right now. And that's the exciting part, right? That's when I tell you guys are there helping us make that clay. You're gonna come back to us and say, okay, hey, you know, this is not working. How we're packaging this is not working, or the lingo that we're using not working. Paul, I tried your like selling inside bullshit and it didn't work really well, man. Let's try something else. I tried something else and it worked really well. Okay, let's do that now, you know? And let's ask marketing to put it into some documents so we can test it and see if it works, you know? That's, I think, the interesting part of when you guys come in at such an early stage in the cycle, is that you do have the ability to help in that process. We know this. We're in the right direction. And we know that we're hitting a market that has a lot of money and is very receptive to what we're saying, right? Now, we don't know exactly how to like say, okay, let's be like, you know, snipers. Yeah, we're still a little bit less of a sniper. We're trying to figure it out. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's a little bit. That's why it's not perfect. You're not coming to like, it's not, the beauty of this is you're not coming to like a roll that is like this, a square. You're coming to a little more of a cloud. And that's the fun part of it. I mean, both of you like are artists, right? It's like, you know, think about it, you're like, it's oil paint, I don't know where it's going. And oh, hey, that didn't work out well, but I can do something over that. You know, it's like a little bit of that. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about startups. I mean, you have to have that entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah. More questions? Come on, Sammy, give me one, man, from Brandeis, come on. BC and UPenn are kicking butt here on the questions, man. And,
What Paul thinks.
I mean,
1 second here.
I know, man. I mean,
no, you know, you're from Brandeis. You explained it so well. It's very self-explanatory that you know.
yeah. That doesn't work, man.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not sure if I speak for everybody, but like I have lots of like questions about specifics, but obviously like we're gonna delve into those. Like, you know, I like what's the thought leadership package? Like,
I'm not gonna.
Obviously, we're gonna delve into that later. I would just like larger, you know, 10,000 square feet or 10,000 feet up.
Yeah.
Trying to do.
I feel the same. I mean, I have more specific questions, but I feel as they're not really relevant for right now.
Okay. Yeah.
This is kind of a silly question, but
BC coming through, baby.
when
Sorry, boys. BC. Yeah, UPenn's doing well too. UPenn's doing great. Don't worry. UPenn's doing well.
But so I'm from Kansas City, so you can imagine when my family's like, so what company are you working for?
Yeah.
And they have no.
Tell them it's similar to American Century Funds.
Okay.
Isn't it?
I was gonna say, like, when you're telling your grandma or your wife like what GigaOM is, what is like the most simple language that you use to tell someone who maybe doesn't know or wouldn't have a reason to read it?
Like grandma?
Yeah, like grandma.
Like grandma.
Uh-huh.
You know what? I'm going to give you that. You need to figure that out.
Okay.
Because I haven't yet figured out how to explain it to my grandma.
Gotcha. I've been saying a technology media company.
Yeah, but when you say technology, grandma, really?
Yeah.
Will she understand that? So I'm trying to figure out, like,
I'll keep working on it.
what does grandma do that was very specific? Like, didn't they, like, knit, like a knitting magazine?
It has Facebook and text.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they understand, like...
Yeah, no, exactly.
So think about more like a trade magazine, right, for them. It's like a trade magazine that had, like, events of something. I don't know. Like a Food Network, I don't know.
I guess just.
But that's a very, I mean, that is the $1 million question. Is how do we define GigaOM and GigaOM Pro? So when you speak to someone, they get it, right?